Did you get plugged in okay, Deshaun?
Oh, my computer's frozen. That's why it's not. I'm good to go.
Thank you. Like to call to order the City of North Pole regular meeting, December 19th, 2022, being brought to us in the City Hall chambers and over Zoom. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Mrs. Clark?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mr. Skips?
Here.
Mr. Keller?
He's absent.
Okay. Mrs. Welch?
Here.
Mr. Jacobson?
Here.
Mr. Mayor?
Here. Thank you very much. And would you please lead us, Madam Clerk, into the Pledge of Allegiance, and after that, we'll have an invocation by Ms. Clack. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
God, indivisible.
liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the invocation. Ms. Clack.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together. Help us to make the right choices and decisions as we come together for the city of North Pole. Keep us and protect us as we drive up and down these highways. And those that may be sick, Lord, that you will comfort their bodies and bring people to keep them happy and full of joy. And we just thank you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. Go to item 4, an action item. You'll find this agenda on pages 1 and 2, a call for approval of agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second, Skips.
So motion by Jacobson, seconded by Skips for the agenda.
Move to amend the agenda by
State your amendment.
under old business, item A and B, moving those to consent agenda. Under item 12, new business, moving item B, ordinance 2230, an ordinance of the city of North Pole amending the 2022 year-end budget, moving that to consent agenda. And also item D, resolution 2219, a resolution of the North Pole City Council reappointing Mike Miller to the Fairbanks North Star Borough Interior Gas Utility Board.
Second, I know.
So amendment by Jacobson, seconded by Welch, to take items A and B old business, items B and D under new business, and consent to those. Any questions?
Just Mr. Mayor, I'd like to note that Mr. Miller is present tonight. If you,
Mhm. Go ahead, sir.
I said that Mr. Miller, Mike Miller is present tonight. If you want him to say anything or,
Or he will when we get to item D. He probably will talk to us in the presentation with Mr. Britton too. Thank you.
okay.
While we have him. Thank you for that. I did see him in the audience. Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, call the roll on those amended agenda.
Okay. Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark?
Yes.
Mrs. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Skips?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer? Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Does anyone wish to change their vote? I see none. The amendments carry. Now, on the amended agenda, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Skips?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson? Mr. Kramer? Mrs. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Anyone wish to change your vote? I see none. It is now carried for the new agenda. Thank you. Now, item 5 is an action item for approval of the minutes from the 12/12 meeting that you'll find on pages 3 to 11. I need someone to motion for the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Okay, there's a motion by Welch, seconded by Clack to approve the minutes from 12:12. Any discussion or any corrections? I see none. Madam Clerk, call that roll, please.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Kermer,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clack,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Anyone wish to change their vote? Thank you. Congratulations. The minutes from 12:12 are approved. Item 6, communications from the mayor. We'll start out in Pro Tem Jeff Jacobson is going to help me here with the student of the month, Noah Conley. You'll find that on page 12. Please, Jeff, would you proceed on my behalf? Thank you.
If you could please join me up here.
You could do it from your chair or you could do it from the table. Your choice, sir.
I think I'll do it from the table.
Yeah.
Whereas Noah Conley is a senior at North Pole High School and is the son of Michelle and Adam Conley. Whereas Noah is involved in the track and field and the CNA program, is a member of the student council and is also the school mascot. Whereas Noah spends his time volunteering as a mentor for incoming freshmen with the Ignite program and is a leader of the Young Men's Quorum and is part of the Eagle Scout Project and Unified Sports. Whereas Noah has been honored with awards from both the Eagle Scouts and the American Legion. Whereas the city of North Pole desires to recognize the outstanding students in the community. Now therefore, Michael W. Welch, Mayor of the city of North Pole, does hereby proclaim Noah Conley the North Pole City Council High School Student of the Month for December 2022. Congratulations, Noah.
Thank you.
Noah, what do you do next?
Sorry.
What do you do next?
Next step is to finish high school.
And where are you destined to after high school?
After high school, I plan on serving a mission for my church. To your mission, dedicating my life to the Lord and spreading the gospel. After
Congratulations.
that, college.
Do you know where you're going to go on your mission yet?
Wherever the Lord chooses.
Okay. Good luck with that then. Thank you for doing
Thank
such a good job in making your community, your school, and your parents proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, under communications, I go to the Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation presentation that President and Chief Executive Officer, who I've known ever since God knows when, Jomo Stewart, is here to help us. And he'll hand out to the clerk those handouts. And Madam Clerk, if you could share his presentation, I'd appreciate that too.
All right, thank you very much. For the record, my name is Jomo Stewart. I'm the president and CEO of the Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation, and I'm afraid after that young man, this is going to be quite the letdown. But I just realized a couple of months ago that it's been quite a while since I had the opportunity to come before the North Pole City Council, and recognizing that there were a number of new members, I just thought I would take a moment to come on down to North Pole and just introduce myself, the organization, give a little bit of a rundown of what we do, and try to highlight a few of the things that we do here in North Pole, because I know that Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation, Fairbanks is in our name, but we don't see ourselves limited by that geography, certainly not the geography of the city of Fairbanks. In fact, we serve the community of Fairbanks, greater community of Fairbanks, the Fairbanks North Star Borough, as well as we do consider the entire interior region our major impact area. And of course, we do quite a bit of work here in North Pole. So just a really quick, and I will try. I heard there's an over under on getting out of here by 9 o'clock for you all, and so I'll try to do my part. Okay, so this is a rundown of our board of directors, the Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation. Our chair is Mr. Bert Bell. Jerry Simon at Tanana Chiefs is our vice chair. Amy Cook is with Tote Marine is our secretary, and Mr. Jeff Putnam at Design Alaska is our treasurer of note these days. We've had a little bit of a transition on the board. In fact, we just had our big year-end board meeting last month, and so we have had a little bit, or excuse me, last week, and so we have had a few changes from even this slide. But yeah, so David Pruse, or his designee, the mayor of the city of Fairbanks. Grier Hopkins is our union representative. Mr. Lou Florence with Joint Utilities. Jen Thompson with the Chamber of Commerce it's their designee. Dan White, the UAF chancellor. Steve Lundgren, president of Denali State Bank, as well as Mr. Jack Hebert, although he has just rotated off the board, and we have given his seat to Mr. Bruno Gruno, who is the executive director of the NREL side of the CCRC NREL shop. As well as ex officio members, Mr. Bryce Ward, mayor of the Fairbanks North Star Borough or designee, Mayor Welsh or his designee, Miss Angie Spear with the Fairbanks International Airport. Miss Mindy O'Neill is still our representative for the Fairbanks North Star Borough Assembly, and Mr. David Hale of Hale and Associates. So this was our staff for the bulk of 2022. We've actually had some changes. Mr. Evan Wilkin was very recently poached by Mount McKinley Bank. We're very happy for him. So he has transitioned over to banking services, which really does kind of fit his natural bent. Miss Renee Litton moved on to greener pastures. However, it is still me as president and CEO. My office big brain is Miss Rebecca Jones, and we have recently hired a military spouse, Mrs. Lisa Slaba, as our new military project manager. We do a lot of work with the military, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in further slides. But she is a military spouse, has been in the community for, I believe, a little over a year, has great connections across the DoD, and is bringing a really unique and beneficial perspective on our military relations to the shop. We're very happy to have her. Whoops. Okay, so our major grantors are the Fairbanks North Star Borough and the city of Fairbanks. But we also have a whole suite of private investors from the airport, which we named, which is a major grantor, Denali State Bank, Mount McKinley Bank, ConocoPhillips. So we have a nice list here. And I'll be leaving these slides with you so you can, just have those for your further use. So really quick, I mean, people ask a lot of questions, particularly my children don't even know what I do for a living. But I like to give just a quick economy 101. In very, very simplest terms, in economy, you have a bunch of money flowing in from either private or public sources. It goes into the bucket, which is our local economy in the form of wages and services. It swirls around, and eventually, though, it leaks out because, of course, there's only so much that you make directly within an economy. So economic development 101 really is about trying to increase the flow of dollars into the economy, find ways to expand the bucket, grow the bucket, more businesses, more activity, and then plug or slow the leaks, thereby, again, retaining more of those dollars for longer within the economy to help it grow. And we try to do all of those things. Now, regarding our own economy, again, we get a lot of questions at FEDC. Effectively, in very simplest terms, why do we do the things we do in the way we do it? To try to answer that question, for many years, we maintained a Fairbanks economic model and social accounting metrics that really did a deep dive and gave a really deep perspective on what are the major drivers within our community, the major businesses, how many people are employed there, what kind of wages are they making? And I know this is very hard to see, but this is a snapshot from that old model. And what you see is that, we had an example would be petroleum, which you all know well, which is on the very far left, when we had 2 refineries in operation here in the community. Now, you'll see that on the blue bar, it didn't really employ a great many people, but as you can see from the red bar, it was some of the very best paying jobs within our community. Other sectors, retail would be an example of one for which you have a lot of employment, a lot of people doing those jobs, but relatively low wages. And so trying to find that balance of strong employment with good wages, supporting those businesses, try to make more of them or hold them here. When it came to some of the lesser paying jobs, trying to maybe find ways to improve that payment, but all again towards the economy. Another way of looking at it, actually, I use this example directly with the Borough Assembly because partially this was an answer to one of their questions. So when you look at a lot of this was from their own source book and their budget reporting. And from their own budget reporting, government and from other analyses you can do, it turns out that government is one of the largest employers within our community. 1 in 3 jobs either is directly or is directly supported by government. In fact, 70 cents of every dollar that pings around in our economy originates somehow, some way in some form of government. And so when people talk about, we should just slash government, we have to be kind of careful with that because it can be a really major driver of our economy. In fact, the military bases, that's government. They make up about 1/3 of our economy. Transportation, trade, and utilities ranks number 2. Retail accounting for over 60% of jobs, however, also in that category. So again, a lot of jobs, but generally speaking, the utilities are some of the higher paying jobs in that sector. And then finally, resources and resource related industries punch above their weight. And you're going to hear about one of them just a little bit later with the interior gas utility. So altogether, they account for a bit less than 20% of our total employment. However, they're some of the best paying private sector jobs in our economy. And in fact, when you look at the FNSB's tax revenues, they make up half and in fact the top 3 of what were at the time the top 10 principal taxable entities within the community. Things like Alyeska related activities, Kinross, Fort Knox, and gold mining, and Doyon utilities. So in answer to the question of, again, why does FEDC do the things we do the way we do it? In very simplest terms, FEDC's projects, they reflect the community we serve, the economy in which we operate, and the circumstances we all either endure or enjoy. An example of that, again, with the interior gas utility, although not to besmirch you, is cost of energy. You know, when you live in one of the coldest, darkest metropolitan centers on the face of the planet, energy is a big, big deal. There's only so many lights you can turn off for so many hours of the day, and there's only so low you can turn down the heat at 30 below. And so the cost, reliability, and security of supply of energy is a big, big deal, just as one example. And finally, FEDC's efforts seek to build on our competitive advantages, such as they are, and trying to grow them, diversify our economy, and protect the best of what we have so that we can build on it for a broader, more prosperous future. So these are just a rundown of the projects as we define them at FEDC. Now, this is a little bit different. Our in fact largest funder is the Fairbanks North Star Borough, and we kind of categorize these things a little bit differently per our contracting with them for that grant. But these are our projects as we list them and kind of work on them. Things like tech-led development, which started as trying to take the university and all the wonderful things they were producing and seeing if we could turn them into jobs and businesses here on the streets. Rural outreach, again, recognizing Fairbanks as the hub of the broader interior region and hoping to grow that commerce, grow Fairbanks, which is really the kind of the touchstone for our small business development as well as our agriculture project. And I actually was just about to pass out one of the outputs. We just had our Winter Solstice Fest. We just did our Moose on the Loose small business scavenger hunt, and that falls under that heading. Military and Arctic, emerging Arctic, which is the reality that, well, first of all, that the Arctic is changing. I think we've all heard, you know, one of the, well, maybe upsides of global warming is the fact that the sea lanes are opening. The Great Northwest Passage is now becoming a reality. But there was also the reality that we are behind the curve when it came to doing things to secure our position in the Arctic, being able to control those sea lanes and also lay claim to the resources below that's the surface. The Russians are way ahead of us, and it took a while. It took about 15 years actually to really get the United States government and the DoD to wrap their heads around it. But they have, and it is starting to show up in things like the F-35s, the transition of Fort Wainwright to 11th Airborne as opposed to a Stryker Brigade, things like trying to boost, they're talking about boosting our aerial refueling capacity with KC-135s and eventually the KC-46s, but as well as a whole host of further developments, again, about securing our position, our nation's position as America's Arctic. And frankly, us, as a community and as a state, trying to leverage that focus and leverage that economic or that activity into further private sector activity that benefits our residents. Again, it's not just the planes, but the housing, the retail, the improvements and things like our quality of life. Energy, mining, forestry, and biomass, Interior Issues Council, and then special projects. Things like we did help a lot with this year when they were updating the FNSB SEDS, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, which is our community's 5-year economic plan. Things like energy resources strategic planning and our own corporate strategic planning. Because reality is I'm new to my job. I've been a project manager at FEDC for, oh boy, I don't even want to say how long, about 15 years. But last January 1st, I was elevated to the president and CEO. Perfect time to decide whether or not this kind of siloing of activities is the way we should be doing things, or if maybe we should be transitioning to be something different. Because the reality is we have been the right economic development corporation for our community historically, but it is a question whether or not we are structured properly to be what you all need 5, 10, 15 years from now. So we actually are in the process of having that conversation at a board level, and I will be coming back to talk to you all as well. It's a community enterprise. So these are just some of the things, again, we do under tech-led development, things like startup weekends and startup weeks. We also maintain business development tools to try to help our businesses be the best they can be. When COVID hit, we did a major retooling of our business development suite to try to make sure that we structured our website and our activities in a way that would make the business resources that were coming down from the feds and the state as accessible as possible to our business community, trying to be that one-stop shop. If you had a question about where you might get those grants or get those loans or whom you should talk to, we retool to make sure that we can answer those questions for you while having further partnerships with other economic development and business development entities across the community and state. Most recently, we did an event in the same way that governments and the private sector businesses have been having trouble finding employees. Likewise, the nonprofit sector, we found, was having a lot of trouble finding volunteers and board members. So we worked with the North Star Ballet to essentially do almost like a jobs fair for nonprofits. We did it over at Alaska Land. 10 local nonprofits participated, and people could come. We advertised it so that people could come who, if they had an interest in possibly volunteering, they could see a suite of the kinds of places they could volunteer in, or if they had that extra zeal and thought they might like to be a board member, again, they could talk to those entities to see if they were the right fit. And in fact, it wasn't as strongly attended as we were hoping as the first time out, but it did have pretty good attendance. And my understanding is at least 3 or 4 of the nonprofits did in fact secure volunteers, and 2 of them did get directors, which had in fact been what we were shooting for. So that was good. Finally, a new thing that we started just this year, and in fact, it was Mr. Wilkins' grandson who helped start this thing, was the Alaska Interior Business Accelerator. The year before last, we got approached at FEDC. An entity wanted to relocate to town that did business acceleration and workforce development training. The problem was they wanted $300,000 to establish shop here in our community. That was going to be $300,000 of community funds that were going to leave our town. Instead, we wondered if we had the resources here in town between FEDC, the Small Business Development Center, the university, to go ahead and just build an accelerator from our existing resources and organizations. And we, in fact, did. The first cohort was this spring. It was a rousing success. And we just did just completed the second cohort in November. For the second cohort, there were 12 applicants, 10 were accepted. Actually, no, there were 12 applicants, all were accepted. 10 went all the way through the process, and 8 of them pitched at the final pitch competition. And I can tell you that every single one of the businesses that pitched was, I believe, someone that was eminently financeable and fundable. Really great ideas with great business plans. Again, really good. So we'll be doing that again this spring. Oh, I had a slide for that. Okay. That just gives you a kind of a rundown of the kinds of classes they were getting, the kind of experiences they were having. Again, and you're taking this with you. This is all for you guys. Regarding rural outreach, again, we do a lot of things to try to, again, strengthen the bonds between ourselves and our little more rural regional neighbors. Things like we support Native events. We do an ACS phone book. We help those get delivered out into rural Alaska so that the first place, if they reach for a phone book, they get Fairbanks's. We also maintain a 1-800 directory. It turns out that 1-800 numbers are still very, very important in rural Alaska. Who knew? So we do keep a 1-800 directory. And if we send out postcards across rural Alaska, if they call and ask for one, we'll mail it out to them. Finally, we did a lot of seasonal promotion. Now, Explore Fairbanks is, of course, our big tourism-based enterprise, but they do most of their advertising out of state. during COVID, they did a bit more in-state to try to increase statewide tourism. We focus again on those rural regional partners. And these actually are some of the advertisements we ran over the course of this past summer, just highlighting local events, things like the Midnight Sun, 4th of July, WEO, what else? The fair, all with the punchline of, essentially, did you know? Fairbanks is a great place to do business, live, love, and play, and hope you'll come visit. And that we really appreciate your business when you do. And then finally, we did a conference. Grow Fairbanks, we do a whole bunch of stuff. Again, we talked a little bit about agriculture and again, moose on the loose. The thing that I did want to point out to you all on this slide just is the fact that, so what we do, one of the things we do at FEDC regarding small businesses and promoting buying local, the reality is even a very small transition in purchasing by the customer can have a really, really big impact within a community. Specifically, just a 10% shift from buying online to shopping in local stores would leave hundreds of millions of dollars in our local economy and support over 1,000 more jobs. And so we heavily promote our local small businesses and asking people to shop them. We do it all year long, but of course we do a lot of seasonal events as well. Here around the Christmas season, usually on Small Business Sunday, I did have an op-ed in the Newsmiter on that, but we usually do this thing called the Moose on the Loose scavenger hunt. Again, it's a bunch of local businesses. We encourage people to go shop them, but all year long, we do what's called weekly small business spotlights, where we literally just pick a small business and we highlight them on our social media. We made a special effort over 2022 since I got to take over and call the shots. I directed my project managers to do at least once a month here in North Pole, find a North Pole business to highlight. And this slide just shows a few of the ones we did highlight over the course of 2022, like, again, Alaska K9 Center, the North Pole Creperie, Tamales, as well as others. So I just want to let you know, I guess one of the things I did want to leave with you all is, again, the work we do in North Pole, FEDC has always done work in North Pole for North Pole. It just happens to kind of ebb and flow a bit depending on your needs and your own local capacities to provide those services. An example would be when Buzz Otis was alive and you all had an economic development corporation, we would partner, we would do stuff with him. But again, we allowed Buzz to take the lead. He knew the community, he lived in the community. Now that he's gone and the, North Pole economic development has kind of ebbed a bit, we've tried to step into the breach to make sure that your businesses are represented and promoted. And there's lots more examples like that. But again, so we have made a special effort on that regard over the course of 2022. This was the most recent event. It just got done on Saturday, and that was the big Winter Solstice Festival. It took a bunch of events that have been done by different groups separately, and we tried to bring it together into just one big festival. And so that was the Downtown Association with their fireworks and reindeer. That was the Parks and Rec with their Christmas tree light and light walk down by the river. That was Morris Thompson Community Center with their holiday bazaar and our Moose on the Loose. And so it started on December 9th and it ran all the way through last week, culminating again in the fireworks and the reindeers. One thing we did extra though, I didn't realize that your Chamber of Commerce had really stepped back up as it has. I didn't actually find it out until I was I did a presentation on this to the Chamber of Commerce, and a lady from your North Pole Chamber of Commerce came up and said, "Oh, we're doing our Winter Fest." So it was too late to bring their Chamber of Commerce in to partner on this event. But what I did do is I went ahead and reached out with my contacts at the military bases and directed them to let them know that it was going on, particularly out there at Eielson Air Force Base, because it's a really long haul from Eielson to Fairbanks. They may not make it to come see fireworks, but I wanted to let them know that there were going to be fireworks really close to them last weekend. So again, those kinds of partnerships. And hopefully next year, if this timing works out again, we will roll in the North Pole Chamber of Commerce and again, make it an even bigger, larger community-wide event. And of course, Grow Fairbanks is our agriculture product, or agriculture is under grow Fairbanks. We do things like we helped establish the farmers market in North Pole. We keep the agriculture directory that lists all the farms in the community, the farmers markets, the community farms, those kinds of things. And yes, we do highlight North Pole farms in the community directory, as well as all the other things we do. I like that. That's football. Let's see. Military. Of course, the largest body of our work relative to North Pole over the course of the last couple of years has involved the military, and specifically housing relative to the F-35 service members. We recognized, the whole community recognized, that 3,500 people doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you're a community of only 100,000 people, that's 3.5%. That's a big deal. That's a lot of folks. And we had to figure out how to house them. The reality is the military has changed from when I was a little kid. When Dad was stationed at Fort Campbell is huge on the border of Kentucky and Tennessee. It is huge. I want to say it has like 2 or 3 PXs, 4 or 5 bowling alleys, a couple of movie theaters. When we lived there, there were families that literally never left the base because the old paradigm at the DoD was that these bases should be able to be islanded. So if everything went to, you know what, outside a fence line, their people would still be taken care of. Well, that paradigm has shifted over the last generation. Now the DoD relies more and more heavily on the communities that host bases to provide services that heretofore had been provided on bases. Things like schooling, healthcare, and in this case, housing. North Pole is centrally located between Fort Wainwright and Eielson Air Force Base. And so we recognized that it was going to be ground zero. It was already going to be ground zero relative to the F-35s, but it's going to be ground zero regarding the entire military buildup in our community. I believe that this military buildup is finally going to allow North Pole to come into its own, truly come into its own. The increase in population is going to be an increase for services, demand for increase in services, but also, public service, but also retail, private sector services. So I think that's really going to do a lot of great stuff for North Pole. And we've been trying to do our part. Particularly, we host the Civilian Military Housing Task Force for the FNSB, trying to bring together all the stakeholders to try to pull this off, building all of this required housing, but also try to leverage that military need for housing with the long-standing pent-up need for civilian housing and improvements across our community. So trying to figure out how to mutually leverage those to the benefit of all of us. And again, a lot of that work has been occurring right here in North Pole. Oh, and again, I have a slide for that. And finally, well, I guess not finally, but energy. Again, we do a lot of stuff on energy. We helped spool up the IGU. It was, in fact, me who picked the home base. When the original cost of energy, the original natural gas pipeline study had been completed, recognizing that the private sector FNG had a CPCN that covered core Fairbanks. We looked around the community for what would be the home base for the interior gas utility, the municipal utility, and of course, the next densest area of town was North Pole. And so that's where they made their focus, at least for the first couple of years of their existence. And in fact, I think it was 2014, 15, when they did their first big build out, laying pipe around all of core North Pole, which is now being serviced by that satellite LNG facility right over there by Petrostar. So FEDC was instrumental in trying to spool all that up, among other energy things. In the end, again, what we're trying to do is figure out ways to cost effectively, reliably, and securely diversify our energy base and reduce and stabilize the cost of energy, because that, in fact, will be what gives us the very best shot at growth in our economy. We also have been helping out a lot, however, this year regarding nuclear energy. Nuclear energy has been a big, hot topic of discussion, became an even bigger, hotter topic of discussion when it was announced that Eielson Air Force Base had been selected for the first civilian deployment of a commercially available small-scale nuclear reactor. So we've partnered with, I got a reach out from UAF Research as well as ASEP. And so we helped put on their town hall there at Norween for small-scale nuclear, helped organize their Alaska delegation and attended when we went down to Idaho National Labs. That was fascinating, as well as co-hosted the big nuclear vendor town hall that happened at the Pipeline Training Center when they were getting ready to release that RFP, a number of the vendors who would presumably bid in or respond to that request for proposals came to town for essentially a scoping meeting. And we talked them into making themselves available to the community to both give little presentations on their proposals, but also to answer our questions, because this is new and different technology. And so they did do that. And it was attended by over 200 folks. It was quite fascinating. And we'll keep working on that and trying to help keep the community informed. Finally, in mining, again, we're a mining town. So we've always promoted our region as, again, a world-class mineralized province, and as a state with a rather permissive, prudently permissive regulatory regime. So a great place to come do mining. Certainly, we think it is. Regarding the Manh Choh proposal, though, and I don't want to get in the middle of the Manh Choh proposal, but at FEDC, I will say that we were intrigued when we first heard about it. In the paradigm it potentially offered our community. And by that, I mean, where Fairbanks might remain a mining community, not because we had a mine in every backyard, but because we became the location for centralized mineral and ore processing. At core, that's what the Manh Choh proposal is. Now, we need to figure out ways to increase and improve the access and transportation so that it is not as negatively impactful on the rest of our users. However, I am personally intrigued by that proposal, particularly at this moment. We have found so glaringly on a global basis the risk of having this development and this value-added processing happening in places that are, in fact, our adversaries, and where those supply lines can be very tenuous or even broken. So we're going to keep working on this one. And finally, one of the big things we do, and this is my personal baby, is the Energy for All Alaska Task Force. It's been going on since, 2006, meets every Tuesday. It's morphed over time. It actually started as the Cost of Energy Task Force when that cost of energy spike happened around 2005, 2006, but we've maintained it ever since. Over time, the name has morphed to the Energy for All Alaska Task Force, and it has become a bit of a catch-all for other kind of resource development stuff and other things that are just important to our community or our state, but it's still a major focus is energy. And this just gives you a sliver of the kinds of things that we've had as discussions over the course of the last year. In fact, our very last week was our capstone presentation. It's by a couple of young men. They own a company called Alaska Renewables, and they're working on a proposal for 2 large-scale wind farms, one down in the Cook Inlet region, and then one here on the backside of Murphy Dome, as well as other renewable energy projects, just to get a feel for kind of what they're up to and see how viable it might be and how, again, something like that might be integrated into our economy. Things outside of energy, though, things like top of the year, we had Murkowski and Sullivan relative to those infrastructure bills and all that federal money. We had the Alaska Railroad Corporation come to give an update regarding their stuff. That's how I found out that we could build a railroad to Delta Junction, at least at the time of the estimate at the top of this year. And in respect to the Manh Choh project, that by the estimate of the Alaska Railroad, we could go that 81 miles in under 5 years for, I believe it was, $1.5 billion. And if we had that railroad, the military would be able to move their freight and their personnel all the way from the coast past all of their major, in fact, past and to all of their major military installations. No more big convoys on the highways. You could transload the ore at Delta Junction, so it would not have to be in the most heavily trafficked area of the Richardson Highway. Things like that. Let's see. We also had ranked choice voting, of course, the UAF drone program, which is a great opportunity for our community, as well as we had a really great presentation regarding UAF's distance learning capabilities. And it turns out that, any one of us can get a toe in academia, even for free, with some of their online courses through Alaska X. And again, UC Mining. And again, finally, we helped out a lot as much as we could with the economic development strategy. And a lot of the work we do was already advanced, a lot of the things that were proposed under the SEDS, but now we get to use it as our real marching orders for work. Again, it was a 2-year process, got broad community input and buy-in, and it's given a whole suite of great projects that if advanced to fruition would be great for our economy and state. Finally, the Young Professionals Council was actually established to try to give a voice to the post-Prudo generation. And it's ebbed and flowed, but we're going to take one more stab at trying to get this thing back into full operation. When it first started, the first 2 generations of the YPC have gone on to do great things across our community. They built really strong networks, really strong friendships. They still work together. And it's folks like Mindy O'Neill, who was the presiding officer of the Assembly, Grier Hopkins, just now former representative, Derek Miller, one of the tops up at the university. The list goes on. And so we'd like to keep giving that opportunity to future generations of young Fairbanksans. And to frankly let them have a voice instead of us old people telling them what they need. Let them tell us what they need so we can start working on and try to improve their lives. Things like healthcare, things like childcare, which is a major inhibitor to young people really fully maximizing their opportunities in the workforce. And finally, we've done some visioning along the way, but I'll just zip through those. Again, yeah, we helped. Turns out FEDC's I will stop for a second. Turns out FEDC's participation in the IGU really kind of started way back in 2006. Again, when the cost of energy was spiking, a broad cross-section of the community came together. One of the things they thought that the community should maybe pursue as a hedge against rising oil prices was expanding the great system that Dan had helped establish there at FNG and move forward through time. And everybody got on board with that. Certainly we got the critical mass, and with that community support, it turned into a $500,000 grant for a total community-wide engineering, environmental, and cost study for natural gas, a further $3 million grant to move it forward, culminating in $352.5 million of blended finance from the Alaska State Legislature that helped unite FNG and IGU under community control and put in that major infrastructure like putting the pipes pretty much all around Fairbanks, all through core North Pole, a large storage tank in Fairbanks, a satellite storage facility in North Pole, where all of us now have access to natural gas. We don't all have it, we're not all using it, but the vast majority today of our residents have access to the gas because the pipes are running right in front of their house. And that, again, that was a community project. Helping to take community initiatives and make them reality is one of the things FEDC tries to do. So FEDC appreciates you and we thank you. And we feel like we work for you, whether we don't have an office out here, although I hope in the coming years, again, as that buildup happens, it would either you all will reestablish your own or it'll justify us having an office out here. In the meantime, we'll just keep trying to do whatever we can do to help your community, our greater community, be successful. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Was
Thank you,
great.
Joe Mo. We'll wait till the mayor comes back on.
Thank you, Jomo.
Thank you,
That was
Jomo.
very nicely done.
So I'll ask the council, do they have any questions or concerns before you leave, Jomo? If you could sit, I just have one, but I'll let the council go first.
That's why I was loitering, sir.
Yeah. So I'll ask you something real quick here. In this upcoming year, 23-24, we'll probably re-engage with Agnew and Beck for our strategic vision for the next 5 years or so. And you're probably familiar with that product that we did that took about 1.5 years or 2 of study and analysis. And it came out in 2016 and it expired at the end of last year. So it's about 1 year old. Do y'all have the means and capability, because you deal with the SEDS and doing all this structure with business and things, do y'all have the means to also lead us through a project like that if we were given a choice?
I'm afraid at this point, we just don't have the person power for it.
Okay.
Again, there was a pretty long stretch where I was down to only one project manager. Then I had a hitch where it was just me.
Mhm.
We are starting to rebuild, but I'm just afraid at this juncture, again, I just don't have the person power for it. Now we
We've got
do.
about a year till we get up to speed to where we would need that. I don't know in the upcoming year what you have on track, so building.
Okay. In
Yeah.
that case, we we did just go through our budget process. I'm actually reworking the budget based on director feedback. It does envision us being fully staffed, which is to say normally it's the president, CEO, the executive administrator, and 3 project managers. Right now we're down to just 1. But hopefully, again, as we come back up to full staff, and also if I can find the right people, then we would be in a position to be able to more, well, certainly we're going to assist regardless. We're
Yeah.
going to help regardless, but we might even be in a position to help, actually be your contractor to provide that service. We just aren't in that position today.
Thanks for an honest answer. Any questions, members of the council? I'm trying to look to see if anybody's got, yeah, Mr. Jacobson's got his hand up.
Thank you. In your efforts to strengthen Fairbanks as a regional hub, we've been very successful in the medical field with the expansion of the Chief Andrew Isaac Clinic. And so we are now having more rural residents coming into Fairbanks for treatment that they formerly had to go to Anchorage for. So what additional things are being done to capture that audience that's coming to Fairbanks for treatment and care, that they will also take advantage of the other things that are here in Fairbanks? So it's just not see your doctor, just not get your treatment, but while you're in Fairbanks, you can do this and this and this and this. Are there any sort of outreaches to TCC or even the regional air carriers, that there's flyers, brochures, rack cards as people are coming into town that they're looking at? Oh, well, I'm at Fairbanks, I want to go there, I want to do this, I want to.
That's a great idea. I will say, again, I'm kind of known for my candor. Not as such. Again, we've tried not to step on the toes. First of all, we've tried not to step on the toes of Explore Fairbanks. That's why we've kept it kind of limited and on a seasonal basis, and they've appreciated that dovetail. But that's a great idea. That's part of the message, and actually kind of how we do the messaging relative to those summer ads. And again, they're embedded on that presentation. So if you'd like to hear them, you'll be able to. But that's a great idea as far as expanding it to a whole year. We wouldn't have, it does cost us a little bit of money to get the ads run on the summer basis, and it would be just that much more so to do it on a longer year-long basis. But again, I would think that if I had a conversation with Explore Fairbanks, and I also have, again, Jerry Simon, we do have a TCC representative on our board, we could work that out.
I'm thinking of more of the lines like, for example, if they come into Fairbanks, that oftentimes buying stuff and getting it back to their village, it can be a challenge. So is there a way that we can make it easy, saying if you buy at Costco, if you buy at this store or that store, they will package it and ship it, or make it easier for you to get it transported back home via this way or that way, so that we do the heavy lifting and then get them to do their business here rather than somewhere else?
Good, sir. I think it's a great idea. Let's see what we can do. An example is, well, maybe kind of a slight corollary. For over a year now, they've been doing bus tours in Fairbanks. Actually, again, there's lots of examples. I'm hoping that next year we'll expand our Moose on the Loose to include North Pole businesses, either as a standalone or in conjunction with. Explore Fairbanks and the Chamber of Commerce, along with FEDC, have been doing bus tours for incoming service members. Literally a bus tour. They've just gotten to town. They start at the Morris Thompson Center, are driven around town, shown things like where local retail is, the movie theater, amenities, big shopping district. We're trying to figure out how to integrate Eielson Air Force Base into those tours, because right now it's just Fort Wainwright. We're trying to think if there's a way to maybe just do the Eielson Air Force Base, even if it was just North Pole. Beyond that, one of the outputs from the housing task force was a booklet. We call it the housing booklet. And it's really, its long title is, things to know if you're buying, leasing, or renting a home in Fairbanks, Alaska. Now, we wrote this because we don't have building codes outside of the cities, and we knew that we couldn't be directive on builders about what they can and can't build. The next best thing is simply to inform buyers of what you should be looking for, and thereby create market pull for that better quality home. It didn't occur to me until last May, that I should have been giving out this housing booklet to all these incoming service members, as FEDC's contribution to the bus tour. But again, now that we know, we're going to be implementing that.
I think it'd be
That's a
important
great
for them
idea.
to know about road service areas, fire service areas, school bus pickups and drop-offs, because many of them come from metropolitan areas and think that these services are just naturally provided. And depending on where they buy, they may not have ambulance service. They may not have a school bus stop nearby, and they are caught basically unaware until
Yes.
it's too late.
Yeah, it does include a note on road service areas and things like, things you should know when buying a home in Fairbanks, Alaska. But again, that's a great idea, sir. As far as, again, now that we have that pull in the region, how do we further leverage the benefits of that pull, i.e. the healthcare sector? So yes, sir, I will add it to the list.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Joe Mo, I have make a comment so the council could take part in this too. So you have someone new on your team, Lisa Slava, and Lisa is going to have us on a meeting January 26th. I believe that's a Thursday, January 26th, about the tour bus conversation that we're going to carry for the city of North Pole to have with Eielson. So I'll have the clerk send that out to the council if anyone can attend it. It's from 10 to 11. But I'm sure it's just the beginning. It's just setting down who's going to be that. And Lisa's going to be your organizer. And if you could write this name down, Joe, to take back to her, I would suggest that she get in touch with one person that should be on this list. It's the Force Support Squadron, FSS Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Amanda Henry at Eielson, the 354th FSS Commander, Amanda Henry, that she should be on this too. She already knows about it, but she doesn't know what kind of details. But it's a good opportunity. This all came up, by the way, as a discussion with the Explore Fairbanks and the bed tax meeting that we had. Thank you. Any other concerns or questions for Jomo? I'm looking. Okay, Anton. No, I mean Dijon has his hand up. Sorry, Dijon.
You guys ever put in for the bed tax here in North Pole?
No, sir. Not here in North Pole. I believe bed taxes are the source of funds. Definitely, bed taxes are the source of funds for City of Fairbanks. But we never applied for funding here, sir.
I think you should, because you're kind of promoting North Pole as well. So you might just want to put that in the back of your mind.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Next year.
Anyone else?
Just
Jomo.
to thank you,
Oh,
just to
okay.
thank you, just to thank you for a very thorough presentation there, Mr. Jomo. I'm looking forward to just going a little deeper and looking into the slides as I get a chance to look at them. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out.
Appreciate it, Jomo.
And apologies to anyone who had the under.
I'll continue. I don't have much for communications as the mayor now. I think we've pretty much covered. I'm just going to say that in the past week, some of the things that I would have gone to, like the holiday party at Eielson and other events like being over the coffee cup at KJMP, things like that, I was not able to do because of medical reasons. And I'm still receiving treatment in both my SI joints, my pancreas, and in my eyes. So I think I'm going to be somewhere out of the dark and out of the woods about the 3rd of March or so on everything. So I'm just hanging in there and appreciate y'all understanding that. So with that, I'll close communications from the mayor and go to item 7. Are there any council members' questions of the mayor? Okay, I see no questions, so we'll move on to department heads, communications from department heads. Chief Heineken, would you go first, please, sir?
Yes, I sure would. Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Just a couple of quick things for the fire department. You know, seems like we were just together, so not a whole lot, but our Christmas caroling truck is underway. A lot of people have been asking, a lot of buzz on social media. It started on the 15th as scheduled as normal and is proceeding every evening. It should be on the road right now. And we do cover every city street within the city limits of North Pole. We get a lot of questions on what time it'll go by. So we do leave it on the same route, the same routine nightly. So once you kind of get an idea about what time it goes past your driveway, it usually is within a half hour to 45 minutes in that range each night. I haven't had much feedback on the volume this year, no news is good news. It must be appropriate. As we spoke before, it was a little loud last year and we fine-tuned that down. So let me know if there's any concerns with the volume at all, and we can take care of that. The only other thing I have for you tonight is most of you council members are probably aware, as most of the fire chiefs at North Pole have been in the past. I'm a member of the Interior Fire Chiefs Association. And that association is an association of all the area fire departments. Chief level officers and captains can be a member of that organization, along with other organizations such as like the Red Cross, the FMH, other partners like that, and some law enforcement partners. This last week, I was elected as the president of the organization for a 2-year term. So I just want to disclose that to the mayor and the council that as part of my job duties, I'm going to have that on my plate as well. I'm honored to be chosen by my peers for that position. It was definitely on my bucket list, as my 2 predecessors held that position over time. So it's kind of a North Pole Fire Chief tradition to eventually have that position. It come much sooner than I expected. And like I was telling my 2 boys who were firefighters that, I'm used to leading firefighters. They're like herding cats. So leading fire chiefs, I just imagine are going to be like herding tigers. So we'll see how this next 2 years go. But no, I am honored for the position and the opportunity to lead further. So, and that's all I have for this evening. I can answer any questions.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Chief. Do you know if the Christmas Carol fire truck was featured on the Up TV program? My sister commented on watching it on her cable in Arizona, but I didn't catch it, so I didn't know if you were featured or not.
I don't believe it was. We did have it decorated in case they wanted to use it, but I don't believe they actually used it.
It was not. Any other questions? I can't see the council, Madam Clerk, so. Okay, thank you, Chief, for your report.
You're welcome.
And
Have a safe-
congratulations
safe
on your
Christmas
son being
coming
here.
up here. So we don't have Danny Wallace with us tonight, but Paul Tristle is in his stead. Paul, do you have a report for us? And if Madam Clerk can put his things up on the screen for us to see.
Well, I'm pretty sure that Danny had sent this off to you guys. So you have a synopsis of what he was going to go through. The building department is the building department in the winter. There's not a lot going on. There's a little bit with gas conversions and the Pizza Hut that's being built in the mall. Danny's still working on getting the contract signed with the building inspectors. As far as public works, they're still chasing snowflakes more and more on a daily basis. There seemed to be last week a little confusion from a local resident about who takes care of the dump road. And that seems to be reconciled with Bob Jordan.
So has the borough agreed that it's their maintenance?
It does seem to be that way.
Good.
Wonderful. Coordination with DOT on plowing effort seems to be going well. Cody has had no complaints with any of DOT's plowing efforts this winter so far. And they're looking at getting with Hubbard and seeing if what the pros and cons of doing some hard pack removal in January, February, midway through the winter to see if that would help on getting that hard pack up in the spring. Sounds like a good idea. As far as the utility department, looks like moving forward on the rate increase that will go into effect March 1st, and doing everything we can to make sure that everybody's notified and understands the reason for these rate increases. Also in your packet, you'll see a sewer forgiveness memo. There was a resident in Stillmeyer that had a water break on his outside hose bib. It was identified that it didn't go down the sewer. And so that's something that we're wanting to forgive for the customer. Out in Moose Creek, we did get an extension of the project until the end of June. There's a lot more grading, hydro seeding, and some piping work that still needs to be finished up. And so it seemed prudent to go ahead and extend that project until the middle of the summer, the last day of June. And
Paul,
Danny,
do you believe that that's a thing that'll never end, that project? I don't see any end in sight for it, as long as there's a bureaucracy there.
there's a
Job security for some people, huh?
there's a good possibility. It seems like it's dwindling down, and there's not much left on the list of things to get taken care of. Unfortunately, it's all dirt work, road repairs, things like that you have a very small window in order to get those done. And so hopefully that can be done this next summer, and we'll see how that goes. Danny and I had a discussion with the Air Force about the possibilities of communications in dealing with possibly a maintenance fund or something like that, something similar to the North Expansion Project. It's apples and oranges on that, but this being such a new thing that the Department of Defense is looking at these type of situations going for further in the future with a lot of different communities. It's areas that individuals with the Air Force foresee it being something that's communicated back and forth with communities under these circumstances. They're open to furthering the dialogue on this. No guarantees on where it goes, but some of the discussions and the concerns that we had that were brought up, they actually listened to and didn't shut the door completely on that idea. And so we'll see where that goes in the future. But it's just concerns about where Moose Creek as a whole goes in the future and the liability of it to the city. And so if there's anything that could be done to help out the city on that, if it becomes more of a burden in the future than it's worth. That is all that he had written down. Is there anything that you guys?
Through the chair, if y'all have questions, please use protocol and address the chair here. So any questions for Paul? Yes,
sir.
Mr. Cromer.
Did I hear you correct? The Pizza Hut is going into the mall?
What they're doing is, I guess they're downsizing. From what I understand, which is not much about it other than just comments that I've heard. They're trying to downsize the Pizza Hut, make it a little bit more financially sustainable. And they're more or less doing just grab and go out of the mall. I do believe it's where Century Hardware used to be. And they're going to build basically a fast food Pizza Hut. It's not going to be a dine-in as far as I'm understanding. Consolidate a little bit.
Mr. Skips.
Thank you. My question is just about the snow removal. I know there's been a couple plowings. Just some of the stuff I've noticed is where it's come off city streets onto state maintained roads. Right in the radius, there seems to be like an area where nobody hits. So as you turn in the corner, you're about to get onto the major state, there's big humps.
Okay.
So I don't know if you can get the state, somebody to decide who's,
Give me an example and I'll pass it on most definitely, because I've
So,
seen some issues.
I
down
know
at Fifth
perimeter and Old Rich.
Okay.
Right there.
Yep.
And then right as you turn, what's our first left? Like you're going down towards Subway, the railroad tracks. Is that
Oh,
Crossway?
Perimeter Homestead.
Crossway. Because you know how the city has the bike path?
Yep.
There's that sliver of the bike path. It's way out and you have to really swing wide to make that corner.
I know exactly
And
what you're
actually,
talking
as I was
about.
coming here, the fire department had a call and they were turning there and they had to swing way out on a call because it's just so humpy bumpy.
That
right
is
there.
that is a perfect example. I'll talk to Cody about that tomorrow,
Okay.
most definitely.
If may, I could answer that question that you have, Mr. Skip. As the Public Works Director for the city of Fairbanks, we have the same problem with the state. The roads that they maintain, their system is basically to plow the road and they don't do any gating. So at intersections along Airport Road, they will plow Airport Road and any snow that is being pushed to the side will remain in the intersection, which is becoming a cross street for the city to maintain. And it's an ongoing problem. We've told them it'd be nice if we know when you're going to plow Airport Road, because we'll just get done with an intersection. Your trucks will come along and push the snow and create that berm that you have. But that is how they're able to maintain their roads with the budget they have, is just basically push the snow off and not do any gating at intersections
Or driveways.
or driveways.
And I know that's been a concern of Cody's. He's brought it up in frustrations before, but I think that Public Works is learning how to deal with it. The heads up is probably the biggest issue that he has.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of wasted time going down Fifth Avenue, St. Nicholas, just to find out later in the day, you get to do it all over again.
Miss Welch has her hand up.
Cody, there's another area that they really also need to pay attention to is that when you come off the Richards and onto Fifth, and where you hit the intersection of St. Nicholas, which I know is also theirs. So you come around that corner and you literally hit just deep snow as you come off of there. And it was like that for, I don't even think they've been through there just till a couple of days ago. So that deep snow is now flattened and Humpty Bumpty going in there because they didn't come and scrape it, nor did they clear out when they finally came through. They didn't clear out the turn lane, which means that everything is just kind of like the turn lane on Fifth itself is what I'm talking about once you're off the highway. So they definitely need to pay attention to that too.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I will relay that to Public Works most definitely.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate your report in the absence of Danny. And trying to fill in for Public Works too.
Anytime.
All right. Tricia Fogarty. Tricia, can you give us a briefing here? Madam Clerk, you might pull up her financials just in case there's any questions about them.
I sent out financials this afternoon, probably a little bit after 5. So I'm sure you haven't probably had a chance to look at them. And when you do, if you have any questions, contact me anytime. So this is what the financials look like. And then I also sent Melissa a breakdown of the fuel usages by department that you asked for, Mayor.
Yes, thank you.
So I can actually send this out to the council as well, but at the top where it's highlighted, that's year to date what we spent for each building in the city. If you want to scroll a little bit more, you'll see fire department and then water and sewer. Public Works.
So are we over our projected heating?
Yeah, that's in the fiscal note I sent out to you guys for this meeting that you consented So we are making a move for all the fuel.
What would you say it would be an approximate percentage overage that we saw with this increase? Like we had to add 10, 20% more?
In some cases, I think the fire department was about 10,000 to cover what they've got so far. I don't suspect there are going to be many deliveries left. I think that Danny contacted our current supplier and said, near the 20th of the month, don't deliver anymore because the new company comes on January 1st.
21st, the day of the solstice, is their last day to deliver
Okay.
from Alaska Petroleum Distributors.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's all I have tonight.
Any questions for Ms. Fogarty?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Tricia.
Okay.
I think the next up is Miss Ellie from HR.
Usual guys, I'm not getting any smaller. Like I said last week, I'm not going to have much of an update right now. My test is Thursday. So, but if you do have questions for me, I'll be glad to try to answer.
I'm glad to hear that you're feeling healthier.
Yeah.
And the test is coming soon.
Huh?
You ready for your test?
I have a few more things I'd like to fine tune in my brain before Thursday, but I think I'm getting very close. Yes.
Okay.
I did a pre-test Friday last week to see where I was at. And a few more things to work on, but I'll be there.
Okay.
When do you know of your results? When will you know?
I do not have that information right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for Ellie. So we'll turn now to our city clerk.
Let me find me. Hold on.
Find yourself.
All right, there I am. Actually, I don't really have anything since last week.
Okay. How are you progressing in your training now?
Good. I haven't. I finished up my little KTAP things that I needed to do from this last conference. So we'll see. They usually come back in a week or two. So I'm just waiting on those. And then I have a few trainings that I want to sign up for in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, please be willing to share that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I don't think we have a report from the borough rep because they haven't met since we met last week. Is that correct? Borough rep, Ms. Welch?
That is correct. I was not able to attend it since I was busy in other places.
At AML.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So no borough report because there wasn't one since we met last. So we go to the ongoing projects report. Madam Clerk, will you introduce our next speaker?
So yes, we have Dan Britton with us.
And who's with Dan? Okay, Mike Miller, our representative, is with Dan. Hello. Welcome to the city of North Pole. So Mike, it's been what? When were you last elected here? Back in 1976 or something like that?
I served on the city council for 4 years, back in 1976 to 1980, and then state house from 82 and the Senate from 90 to 2000. So yeah, I've had my share in city of North Pole, and I do appreciate the fact that the mayor and the council appointed me, I guess, about 2.5 years ago to the IGU board, and that I was reappointed for a 3-year term. And I think that IGU has made considerable strides in the last couple of years, and we've started to see some of those strides come this last year, with many of the businesses in North Pole residents hooking up to natural gas. And I know 5 years ago that was a pipe dream to most people out in North Pole, but it's now become a reality thanks to the board that we have, but also Mr. Britton, he is carried the lion's share of help getting us to where we are today. Now, we have a long ways yet to go, but we have made tremendous strides. And I'd also like to say that we actually have another board member in attendance, Gary Wilkins, who's been around forever and ever too. So anyway, we actually have 2 of our 7 board members here today, plus our general manager. But again, thank you to the council. And thank you, Mayor Welch, for reappointing me to.
Well, before you get started here, what I was going to ask you is, seeing how it's been almost 40 years, what do you think of the new chambers? That's what I was going to ask you.
Actually, the new, I was, when I was in the state legislature, I actually funded this building in a capital grants program. I believe that was in 83 or 84 when we funded this particular building we were sitting in. And at that time, I remember the cost was roughly 500, maybe 700,000. I don't think we could build that today for that amount of money.
That was my point, because we needed more office space. So that big glass thing behind you is courtesy of the work of the glass doctor. It cost us $18,000 for 180 square feet. And otherwise, I could have taken the closet at the other end of that and tried to turn it into something for 360,000, but you'd still be sitting in a closet. So we're making good use of what we can by putting our heads together. So, but look at the, do you ever think you would see this kind of technology here?
No, in fact, many of us remember the old phones that we used to use in the legislature. We used to communicate back to the interior delegation. It was you push the mic and people could talk to you on a real-time basis. But this type of technology, you know, it's for us. Now, classify me as one of the old guys now. You know, 30 years ago, it was a pipe dream, but we have come a long ways as a country and as a society. And if something electronic breaks now, I just hand it to my 5-year-old grandson and tell her to fix it. And he does a couple of buttons, pushes a couple of buttons and hands it back to me and says, it's fixed.
Well, thanks for your insight. So you can thank the clerk and a few other people who made this possible. So, and some of that was from CARES Act money too.
Yes.
Well, we'll go ahead with the presentation. Dan, please introduce and say what you need there. You've got it. It's yours.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be back in front of the city of North Pole for a brief update on some of the things Interior Gas Utility has been working on. And thank you for your appointment of Director Miller to the IGU board. The IGU board is a strong board. We've also had, as Mike said, Director Wilkin has been recently reappointed. Chair Hagginson was also recently reappointed by the Fairbanks North Star Borough. So we've got a good level of continuity and knowledge base there with our board of directors, and it's much appreciated. Won't keep you too long tonight, but I'll just focus on some of the main activities from this construction season last year. We installed a total of 635 service lines. We had set a goal at the start of the season for 600, and what we felt was a bit of a stretch goal to begin with, and we exceeded that. We also were managed to get completed by October 10th. In a short construction season in Fairbanks and North Pole, it can be very challenging to get your crews ramped up and running efficiently, and then get the work that you need done before the ground starts to freeze up. And we find ourselves many times struggling right at the end to get the last few things done. But this year we managed to get everything scheduled and add some additional above our plan. In addition to the new service lines, we did install about 16,500 feet of new main line. And that was a mix between Fairbanks and North Pole. And for the last 2 years, we've had a budget of about $1 million for new mainline construction. We anticipate the board will authorize a similar budget in fiscal year 2023. For our construction season, the breakdown of what those customers, whether Fairbanks residential, Fairbanks commercial, or North Pole residential, North Pole commercial. So you can see In North Pole, about 29% of the 635 for North Pole residents and 2% North Pole commercial. The remaining balance was Fairbanks. Starting to see the interest pick up in North Pole more and more as people become more familiar with the fact that we're here, and well, a lot of the new the builders are really like the natural gas versus the installation of fuel oil. So a lot of the new construction as well. So to go to the question of security of supply, just one of the large projects that we completed in the last couple of years was the large storage facility in Fairbanks, a total capacity of 5.25 million gallons. And partway into our winter season, we still have 3.85 million gallons. So a significant amount of storage in our community for security of supply. The North Pole facility on H&H Lane has a total capacity of 150,000 gallons. What's going to keep us busy in the next year? The biggest issue we have right now is what's next for LNG and gas supply. We, as we continue to add customers and grow, we need to have additional LNG production. And in order to do that, we also have to have the gas that'll feed into a liquefaction facility. So the board has been discussing and we'll be deliberating on some options for future supply in the coming months. In 2023, we have another goal for 600 service lines. And as I indicated, we'll probably look at about $1 million in mainline extensions. We're working hard to get an LNG storage tax credit that we earned several years ago and continue to push for the governor and the legislature to fund the remaining exploration credits and storage credits so we can receive our $15 million storage credit and then reinvest that in our system. We've been working hard on oil to gas conversion funding and have been very successful with those efforts. So what that is customers that want to convert from oil to gas have an opportunity to receive up to $7,500 in funding towards their conversion. That started out with the Fairbanks North Star Borough with $1 million. And then the borough added another $1 million as part of their COVID funds, and then another 1.25 million on top of that. Additionally, we were successful in expanding the targeted airshed grants that the borough's been getting that were previously just solid fuel devices replacement program to include oil to gas conversion. And that was a little close to $4 million, 3.4 million that went into that funding. And then $1.25 million allocation from the legislature in this year. So that really helps customers to make that conversion and offset some of the costs. So we'll continue to, we just filed for a new targeted airshed grant that included the request for the conversion funding, but also for about approximately $4 million distribution piping expansion. So that will allow us to continue to build out the distribution system with hopefully some federal grant dollars. Any federal grant dollars we can get can offset loans that the utility has to take out for the growth and helps to keep costs manageable. Would you be considering like phase 2 here in North Pole or just other areas for expansion with that $4 million?
Probably targeted areas of expansion. So since and this hasn't been any direct action that the IGU Board of Directors has taken, but since we've now been combined between the old Fairbanks Natural Gas and the IGU system, what we've been doing is we've been taking interest from the community and customer bases. And so anytime we receive a request for service, if we don't have a gas main available, we'll look at what it costs us to extend that gas main and look to make sure we're doing the most economical extensions first. The ones that we don't do, we continue to keep that information and we're mapping those. And so we can see where their higher levels of interest are and then target those areas for our next expansion. So
That makes sense.
likely to be more targeted expansions than a big phase. Yeah.
Mr. Britton, do you mind when we ask you questions on the fly like that? You know, if we're not interrupting you when we do that, are we?
No, I don't mind at all, sir.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clear that. Go ahead, sir.
And lastly, I just, one of the things, particularly for a new area that we serve, is to remind everybody in the community to make sure you call before you dig. We end every one of our presentations with this slide. We don't want anybody damaging our system and causing a potential emergency. So make sure you call 811. We'll do a free locate. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dan? Or for that matter, we were asking, I thought you had asked at some point, Jeff, I thought you had asked back in the meeting of the whole, if we were going to have a chance to talk to, you may have had some questions for Mr. Miller. I don't know if this was the time you wanted to, or you want to wait till we come up to the resolution to reappoint him. You had asked about something back in the meeting of the whole. Was he going to, I knew he was there. You said he was here in the audience, but yeah, I didn't know if you had something you specifically wanted to ask him. I thought that was why. I'm not sure. I may misunderstood you.
I just wanted to acknowledge that he was present in case wanted him to say anything in regards to his continued appointment. But while I've got the floor, I just wanted to thank IGU because I was able to get hooked up to gas in October of 2021. So I just passed my 1-year anniversary and I love having natural gas. I was one of the oil to natural gas conversions, taking advantage of the borough grants. And there's nothing like coming home and flipping on my fireplace and sitting in front of a nice hot fire without having to haul wood or clean ashes out, in addition to having clean energy throughout the rest of my house. So I love it. And if anyone else is considering hooking up to get natural gas, it's well worth it. It's much more economical. My bills are much lower. I love it.
Great. Thank you for becoming a customer.
Ms. Clack has a question. I see her hand raised.
Well, I see that Mr. Jacobson made mention of having the borough help in putting his system in. How is that helping the rest of the community if they're not able to get that hookup or whatever?
So the program is not limited just to natural gas. So if somebody wanted to convert from oil to propane, they could do so. If somebody wanted to convert or change out their wood stove to oil, there's funding for that purpose as well. So it's limited to the target or the air
quality.
Yeah, there's the zone, the non-attainment zone, excuse me. Yeah, it's limited. You have to be within the non-attainment zone to qualify for the funding.
I have a question, Dan.
North Pole is in it.
In reference to what's your target for 2023 for the cost for natural gas for million cubic feet MCF per million MBTU is what I'm trying to say. Put it on the same level playing field. Like oil right now is passing $34 or $5 per MMBTU. Where's gas projected to go in this year coming up?
For our fiscal year 23, the board approved a 5% rate increase. And so our rates will be from July 1st through June. But we haven't started our budgeting process beyond that yet. But we always work hard to try and keep our rates as stable as possible. Our current rates are at $2.95 per oil equivalent. So oil has been 50 to 85% more expensive than gas over the last year.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dan?
No question.
Yes, John, Mr. Cromer.
You said 7,500. Like, how much is like the total thing to convert someone over from oil to natural gas?
So it's highly dependent on what you change out to, whether you go to a high efficiency boiler, whether you're putting a conversion gun on your existing boiler. But we've been, a new boiler installation, a high efficiency boiler is somewhere in the $15,000 range is the numbers we've been seeing lately. Now, if you were to just convert, and if you have a relatively new boiler and put a gas conversion burner on versus your oil burner, you're somewhere in the $3,000 range.
Ms. Clack, I saw your hand up again.
My question is, how long does it take your office or whatever to do that conversion in that person's home?
So we don't do the conversion work. We install the service line from the main line to the home to a meter. The
Okay.
conversion work's completed by a mechanical contractor. And depending on the mechanical contractor, they can be anywhere from a week. Some of the mechanical contractors are booked up more so, and it can be months, depending on which contract you select. We have a contractor list on our website that we have been working with contractors to try and increase the availability and the competitiveness in our community. So, and we're continually focusing on that. One of the other big things is and Jomo spoke to the economic development side of our community, but with all of this activity that we have in the investment in new services and main lines, it's driving a high level economic development for the mechanical contractors and the supply houses in the town. And so those dollars all stay in our community.
Thank you for answering that.
And yes, Sean.
I was wondering, so just you go to your website, you can sign up for the grant?
Yeah, you can do it online. You can call our office, but the grants, we have links to the applications for the borough. We've made our application process very simple now. You can fill out a request for gas online. It's basically your name and location and your telephone number, and then we'll help you with the rest of the process.
Thank you. So I'll ask Mike Miller a closing question. Mike, I'll give you a closing shot here. Do you want to serve another 3 years as our representative on the IGU?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have really enjoyed the last 2.5 to 3 years I've been on the board. I think we've made significant progress in bringing natural gas, not only to the area, but North Pole in particular. And I think we have a very good working board right now, and everybody, we may have our disagreements here and there, but everybody's working for the same goal and everybody's working very hard. And I do appreciate the fact that you appointed and the council has also approved it. And yes, I do look forward to serving another 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Appreciate that, Mike. I know we're in good hands with you watching out for us. Thank you for coming out, gentlemen, and braving.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There is a high level of gas flow these last.
I bet.
So if there's looking at section 10 now, we're moving on to part 10 here. Citizens' comments that are limited to 5 minutes per citizen. These are items that are not on the agenda. Are there any citizens here, Madam Clerk, for items not on the agenda?
No, we don't.
No, we don't. Okay, so now we're going to move on. So under old business, wasn't both A and B consented under old business?
Correct.
So there's no old business, so those are already consented. Now we move to item 12. So what do we have coming up first on item under new business, please?
Move to introduce and advance ordinance 22-29, an ordinance of the city of North Pole changing the order of business, pages 17, 18 of our agenda.
Second.
So there's a motion to introduce by Jacobson and seconded by Welch, ordinance 22-29, city of North Pole to change the order of business. You'll find that on pages 17 and 18. Madam Clerk, you can put that up on the board. Appreciate it. I have pages 17 and 18.
Waiting on.
I appreciate the effort of Mrs. Clack to put this ordinance before us. I think it's in the best interest of residents who do come to our meetings to be able to have the chance to share their concerns earlier in the meeting rather than later. And I encourage the council, when this comes up for final adoption in January, to approve that.
I second it.
Second what?
He was just making a comment.
I was making a comment. So was I. I second it.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm. Who helped with that? Was that both Keller, Jacobson, and Clack, all three of you? Sounds like a law firm. So, Madam Clerk, thank you for putting that up there. Is there any one in the citizens that wish to comment on this?
No, I don't believe so.
No, so we have this before us. Do we need to discuss this item here? I'm going through it. Ms. Clack, you helped write it. Anything you think that stands out that we need to know about, other than where it fits in at now?
None whatsoever.
Okay, I can't hear you. I heard something. And then,
Excuse me, none whatsoever?
okay, so it fits right in there.
Yes.
And so we've struck through some other things, I guess, to make those changes so that it makes some sense about things. To make citizens' comments not be item J, but to be up to H. And then we go to unfinished business. Instead of calling it old business, we'll call that unfinished business. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's the modern terminology. Thank you. So do we need to call the question on this?
Yes.
Call the question. Cromer.
Mr. Cromer called the question, Mayor.
I know he called the question. I'm saying, Madam Clerk, would you take the? I can't hear her. I don't hear her at all. She's not coming through.
Okay, sorry, my microphone keeps shutting off.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Cromer,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson, Mrs. Clack,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Anyone wish to change their vote at this time? I see no changes, and so that's now adopted 6-0. So then we move on. You have to mind that my eyes are having a hard time keeping up. The next item on our agenda under new business.
Item C, Resolution 2218, a resolution of the Northville City Council establishing the 2022 bed tax grant distribution.
You'll find that on page 24, correct?
Second Welch.
Okay. Who made the motion to accept it? I didn't hear.
I guess I did. I was just reading the title, but.
Okay. I thought I heard somebody interject something in there. So it's been moved and seconded. Anyone from the public here to testify on this resolution?
No, sir.
Okay, I don't see anyone here to testify. Okay. It's a pretty good, I mean, you often wish when these things happen that we would have had $207,893 to grant, but we didn't. So this was a pretty good year, and I think the next year coming is going to be even better. Are there any questions about the $138,000 that we're granting?
No, Mayor. But I would like to read into the record so those in the listening audience who may not be able to see the screen can hear that the Illiteracy Council of Alaska was awarded $2,000. Santa's Letters was awarded $11,000. North Pole Chamber of Commerce, $58,000. Explore Fairbanks, $38,000. The Grange, $4,000. The Grange Gallery, $11,000. And the World's Biggest Backpack, $14,000, for a total of $138,000 in bed taxes being distributed back to the community.
Thank you very much for reading that into the record. So, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll for that?
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clack,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Kermer, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Does anyone wish to change their vote? I don't see any changes. So that motion carries 6-0. Congratulations. Now we go to council comments. Who goes first, Madam Clerk?
Sorry, Mrs. Clack.
Council comments? I enjoyed everything I've heard tonight from our speakers. I've learned something new from Jomo, from what they do since I'm new on the board. I hope everybody has a nice Christmas and a new year. I will be leaving tonight for Hawaii for my 41st wedding anniversary.
Yay.
So that's my closing comments.
All right, Mrs. Welch.
Well, the same thing comes, first of all, congratulations on your 41 years. I'm shortly behind you on that one. Ours will be in May. But I certainly wish you and your beloved a wonderful and very safe trip and many blessings for the next 40. Everybody out there, enjoy your holidays. Remember that it's not the gifts that we receive that's important. It's the gifts that we give, not absolutely in form of things, but especially the love. And that, I think, is one of the most important things, that we love our neighbors, we love our families, and we show that appreciation, that it does not have to be monetary. So thank you very much. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, and we'll see you next year.
Mr. Skips.
I have nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Kermer.
I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. On the 30th, I'll be going to New Zealand and Australia from the 30th to the 18th of January. So I'll be missing both of the meetings in January, but I'll be here for February. But everybody stay safe and warm.
You need someone to help carry your luggage.
Right?
Yes, we'd like to join you. It's been a
I
dream.
think that's normally the mayor's comment, isn't it?
Not this time. I'm not going anywhere.
All right, Mr. Jacobson.
Thank you. First of all, I apologize for missing last week's city council meeting. That was also the same night that the city council of Fairbanks adopted their 2023 budget. And as a department head for the Public Works Department, I was tasked with being there to answer any questions before they adopted the $12 million Public Works budget. So I appreciate the discussion that you had here about the bed tax, and not bed tax, but the sales tax. And I'm thankful that you did keep it at the 5.5% that we currently have, so that we do have some monies available for unexpected expenses that will possibly come our way in 2023. I carefully looked at the schedule for both council meetings throughout the year, and all of 2022 looked like there was no conflict until AML hit, and then both councils adjusted their December schedule, and that's why I wasn't able to be here last week. But thank you for the work that you did last Monday night in adopting the North Pole City 2023 budget. I also want to congratulate Chief Heineken for his becoming the Interior Fire Chiefs Association president for the next 2 years. That's quite an honor for him and also for our community. And also to congratulate him on a personal level. His son was promoted at the Fairbanks Fire Department City Council meeting last Monday night, and he was able to be there for that promotion. And so congratulations for the legacy of your family continuing to serve in the fire service career. The governor's budget came out today, and I did give everyone on their chairs what the highlights were from the city of Fairbanks lobbyist Yuri Morgan. And the governor's budget did not include any community assistance program funds for the state. So I'm not sure if in our budget we were anticipating any revenue sharing or community assistance, but the governor doesn't have it in his. That doesn't mean that the legislature won't add it in there. But his budget, I'm sure, is going to be available for everyone to see. But that was just one of the highlights that caught my attention, was if we were depending on any of that. I thought we also had really excellent presentations from FEDCO and also from IGU. I think a lot of great things are happening here in our community, and I wish everyone a very safe Christmas season, those who are traveling or staying, and also New Year. And again, it's an honor to serve with all of you. So I wish you the very best in the starting of 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, well, because you mentioned it, it makes me think when we used to have the community assistance money, and there was a time when the mayor sent me down to Juneau in 14. Well, he went to Guam. He didn't have me carry his bags. He went to Guam, and I got to Juneau in February of 14. But he sent me to bring home like $3.5 million. It took me about 5 weeks to formulate how I was going to do that, and I came home with about 3.1 million. So the difference is those days are long gone. I think the most that we were told to anticipate in this last thing that we just attended down at AML, we may be getting somewhere close to $120,000. Those days of that largesse are long gone. And so that is why, we do what we do with our taxation. That's the this current governor's idea, is that your closest is grassroots, and you have taxing authority. Therefore, you better use it, because we have a better idea of what our community needs and how to get to it. So I'm a little leery, little anxious, but I think we'll get through it one way or the other. And we may do some fine honing throughout the year, but we'll find a way to get through. I wasn't able to do what I would have liked to do in the holiday spirit, as far as like being at the holiday party at Eielson. Yet, what really made me happy was when I got off of the surgeon's table there Thursday, was that I had the former Vice Wing Commander, Colonel Tom Heat, Heat's his call sign, Wolf, displaying the city of North Pole's flag in all its finest out the cockpit of his 767 at Seattle. So I'm going to have the clerk get a copy of that, and y'all can watch it. She'll put it on our website, or she'll send it to you via an email. So the spirit of North Pole, where lives Christmas year round, is displayed out there at Seattle from American Airlines cockpit, thanks to Colonel Wolf. So I think my wife said that she showed that to everyone at that Air Force party. And I think some of those people saw how happy Tom Wolf is that he's now out of the Air Force and flying commercial as a first officer. And I think maybe some of them were sort of jealous too. Barry Nicholsburg came up to visit me. This is the 5th year that he's been here with me. I couldn't very well go far with him. And I can't believe that all these years he's been up here, he's never been to the pagoda. But he just loves North Pole. And he is the chairman of the gifts and endowments to the Jimmy Carter Center. And so, and he was telling me how President Carter's still doing, and Rosalind and things, but he was up here 5th time. He's been up here since 2018. And so if you ever go in my office, there on the credenza is a book that President Carter had sent to me to congratulate me when I was first installed as the mayor here. But he just always seems to really like North Pole, and he says, always show him something great. So at least he's going back to Atlanta, Georgia with a little few mementos from North Pole. And I got a bag of peanuts from a farm that Jimmy Carter still owns, Hampton Peanuts from the Atlanta Braves. So it's pretty good trade-off. It's peanuts or pecans or whatever we can get. So, but I'll say that spirit of Christmas lives well amongst us. Let's see if we can carry it on, make a very good year, close out the year safely, and thank everyone who works for the city. Thank God we have good citizens that have what we discussed down in AML, which was civility. So I appreciate that, and thank you very much.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 49. How about that? 8:49. Show us adjourned. Thank you. Please have a good night.
You too.